Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm here in studio today with our resident engineer, Mike Herzog. How's it going today, Mike?
Glad to be here, David. It's Wednesday.
It's good to have you. And when I say resident engineer, he's not like a medical resident, where he's got to spend 3 years first and then he gets to be an engineer and all that. This means he's hanging around with us. I wanted to open up a little bit talking about, because the big news today, and this affects everything. So we heard all this stuff about electric vehicles selling or not selling, and so much of that is reflected by interest rates. Well, the FOMC meeting is in about 75 minutes. So they're supposed to, at 2:00 Eastern time, they're supposed to announce who is, whether, we're pretty sure there's going to be at least a 0.25% rate drop, but there could be a 0.5% rate drop. 0.5% rate drop would be huge. There's been a lot of conflicting numbers. There's been this jobs report that comes out every month, and apparently it was then fixed, and it turns out it was overstated a while back by 1 million jobs.
Quite a bit. It was
a huge correction. That there was really 1 million less jobs created in the past year, and so we're thinking Jerome Powell may give us a bigger uptick, but we'll see. So it'll be interesting to see where this plays out. So I really can't say a lot more about this. I mean, it affects us, but like in the real estate space, obviously your yields change dramatically with interest rates. And so this is huge there. We'll see a spike in, I think that the stock markets have already baked in a 0.25% drop. Okay. So, hopefully you're not in any, if you shouldn't be in any positions. You don't want to trade the news or hope that you guess the news right. Okay. So those are super, super risky trades. And I'm just saying, if, you're watching, I see we've got a lot of people watching today. It's really a challenge to watch that, because you don't want to be guessing the news. I am really thinking they may go all the way to a 0.5 point, but it's really hard to say. And if that happens, you're going to see the stock market, a lot of activity. It'll probably spike up a little bit, and by morning it'll have corrected itself. Okay. But they're doing it during the trading day. So it's probably going to be wild on the stock markets between 2 and 3 East, till close. It's going to be wild action on the market.
It's a big announcement. It's a big announcement coming out today. I think people have been waiting for it for a while, to see what's going to happen. And like you said, as it ties into here, real estate's more impacted, but vehicle sales are going to be impacted. I mean, it's everything. Everything's going to be impacted.
Well, look at, we talk, there's always talk about, EVs are sitting on lots. But the other thing is, we also talk about how full-size pickup trucks are sitting on lots. When you start talking about vehicles that are $80,000 to $120,000, a small amount on the interest rate is a big impact in the sales of those products.
Will influence a buying decision for sure. Yeah.
So anyways, so that's not something we normally spend a lot of time covering, but it's going to have a big impact on the industry. So interest rates are always going to be huge, and we'll see where that plays out. All right, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about some other news. We've got a lot of stuff going on with charging, and one of the things that comes up is General Motors releases its new approved NACS adapter. So this is going to allow cars to have access to the Tesla charging network. So this is something new for GM. This has been one of the bad experiences people usually have when they drive a non-Tesla, is that other charging stations other than Tesla usually don't work, or I shouldn't say usually don't work.
Ford made a similar announcement, didn't they?
Ford's already on it. Yeah, because there's people driving their Mach-E's and their F-150s at Tesla stations now, and people are confused. But now you're adding General Motors, and that's a big deal, because somehow when Tesla first got into the market, they figured out charging right off the bat. And when you think about how well they implemented that, it's kind of crazy. You look at something the government would implement, it would never be that close. You look at all the other private companies that tried to implement in the space, a lot of them have gotten the implementation and they haven't been able to keep their machines running. And when I say that, it's only 20%. But think about that. And what other business? I mean, if you were going to ATMs and 20% of ATMs didn't work, and I don't know if you were going to a gas station, what percentage of gas pumps don't work, but you know, it's still
honestly,
it's a big deal.
It's a handful of them every time. I don't know if it's 20%, but I
No,
mean,
probably not in the gas station space. It's probably, but the gas station pumps have been around for 100+ years, and so they figured out how to quickly fix that stuff, right? And I think what's happened is there's not enough people who are trained to go out and fix the chargers. And the other problem is, you and I've talked about this, people are stealing the copper out of the cables and
easy.
disabling, so it's random theft and vandalism going on.
It's a big announcement. You want to see all of this standardized. I mean, that takes the fears out of people. And Tesla's been such a leader in DC fast charging for so long, and supercharge. I mean, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but I mean, it's 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1 over their next competitor of available stations, maybe more than that. I mean, it's a big deal, and how it goes through, and if they can do it with an adapter, that's great. The one thing I always point people back to, I always find interesting, because if you look at the actual like cross section of those plugs, I mean,
right.
they're bizarre. It's different plugs, different ways to go in, and people look at that and, well, this is scary. Like, how do I know what to plug in? What can I do? And I always think, well, we'll get used to it. Think about a gas station. There's a pump with a green handle. There's a pump with a yellow handle. There's a pump with a black handle, a pump with a red handle, and everything like that. And there's no safety feature. They all fit in the same gas tank hole. So you're expected to know what gas your car takes. Do you take diesel? Do you not take diesel? So this idea of getting past, well, those chargers are scary, those chargers are complex, like we've done it. Like gasoline did it. We figured it out as a country, and let's just get there with EVs and make everybody's lives easier. We can put that burden on EV owners to figure out how they can charge.
So yesterday, Bill and I were talking a little bit about biofuels and diesel and aviation fuel. But you look at it, you've got all these cars that have this flex fuel that can burn that E85, which, maybe I question if it's even good for the environment, because it has a third less horsepower that the fuel, you generate with it. So you have to burn that much more fuel. And I'm not sure that actually equals out to saving anything. It was a good idea.
Yeah.
In theory, that just, in my opinion, hasn't really worked out. But it's expensive. And we have this other one here. What do they call it? Unleaded 88. That is not quite. It's not like the 85, but it's close. And it's another one that is a downgrade. I don't know how bad that is for somebody's car if they run that instead of, because the unlimited 80 or the super unleaded 87 is the correct fuel for most people that burn gas in Nebraska, and they have the other. But back to our talk about the NACS or Tesla superchargers, because that's the technical name for the superchargers, the NACS. Besides this new news with GM today, we've already put on Ford, Hyundai, BMW, and Lucid. So a lot of companies are now using those. To me, I think that hurts companies like ChargePoint, but ChargePoint has solutions basically to support pretty much all EVs.
All of them.
But they're one of the ones that's one of the victims of the poor performance. Now, the Biden administration tried to put out something where they're basically going to force all the EV chargers to get up to, I think it was 97 or 98% standard, and Tesla's at like 98.5. But
well, a lot of that's baked into the NEVI formula, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan, where they have very strict guidelines on, hey, we're putting these in the middle of nowhere, Western Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado. If people are driving through these spaces, like, they need to have some type of surety that it's going to work. So there's a lot of stipulations built into the criteria for getting federal funding. It's administered at the state level, but the federal funding is pushed down a lot on that. Of like, yeah, you got to make sure it works. You got to run it for at least 5 years, and make sure that it works when you put it out there.
No, that was something I thought was interesting. I got one more thing about Tesla and the superchargers. This one's kind of bizarre. I'm going to show a picture here because this is different. It's a Tesla charger that's being run around on for a forklift. You're sitting there on pallets. And this is a special one for tractor trailers. And so it's a charger. I'm assuming this might be an 800-volt charger. So let's see if there's much to this news. But they were saying that this was one that could be ran around, I guess, to charge a truck somewhere remotely. I don't know. I mean, right now, Tesla's currently only running the semi trucks with Walmart and Pepsi. They've only put 100 out so far to those companies for testing, but it seemed kind of interesting that we had this type of supercharger out that
I might look into
was
that
mobile.
more. Just because the superchargers, especially, it's a high power demand that it puts on the grid. So it's one of those, you kind of got to figure out where you're going to put them before you actually put them there, and make sure you have infrastructure and the right capacity and everything like that. So it's not, you couldn't just drive that thing down the highway and pull over and plug it into a gas station outlet or something and supercharge capabilities.
No, and unfortunately, the article did not have a whole lot of details on the thing. But you think about that 800-volt charger and how much juice it's got to have to support. I have this deal right now where somebody was trying to sell a brand called ABB superchargers, and they're available to me for about a fourth of MSRP. Okay, so I can sell these things for like under $25,000, and if you even had something, a knockoff made in China, it would probably still cost you $65,000-$70,000 to produce. And these things are a bargain, but they're 180 volt and 200 amp. And it was funny because they had 200 amp models and 400 amp models. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much the amperage really mattered as much as the type, because you have cars that can handle 180 volt, you have some that can handle 350 volt, and now there's some coming out now that can handle those 800 volt chargers. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know where that really played in, but I told them I didn't think that was a big issue.
Limit current, because current's your limitation. So power equals voltage times current. So it's one of those, you raise the voltage, you require less current. So in those cases, it's interesting. It's you lower the voltage, but you have to raise the current out to get the same power flow over time. And normally the current's what causes equipment to overheat. It's dangerous. 800 volts is pretty darn dangerous too. So is 400 and 480. But normally in efficiency designs, you try to raise the voltage a little bit and keep the current down. So that would make sense. But if you can pump 400 amps through that thing, like that's a lot. that's a lot of electrons moving.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll have those little warning labels from last week.
Yeah. Don't.
So remember, folks, don't stick the charging cable in your mouth or rectum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about zinc batteries. So got this article that came up, aqueous zinc ion batteries, an alternative to lithium ion. Now, you and I take all the different battery tech with a grain of salt, right?
Always.
So a lot of these are amazing ideas. We see so many amazing ideas come to market, but can somebody actually pump out the money to produce it? And can somebody execute? And does the technology really work? Okay, at all? I mean, there's that question too. As the demand for lithium-ion batteries increases pressure on critical raw material supply chains, researchers are on the hunt for affordable, safe, and sustainable alternatives. Well, right there, we already know part of that's not true, because there is increase in global demand, yet the price keeps plummeting. So that means that the supply greatly exceeds demand on on EVs. Yeah, don't believe it. If somebody's trying to tell you that lithium is a critical, limited resource, that there's any truth in the world of that, because it's not.
I always, I have no issue repeating this every single week about batteries. You could go Google right now, latest battery development, and you will get a laundry list of this lab had a breakthrough, this person had a breakthrough, we're doing it. And it's the gap between a lab experiment and mass production is the Grand Canyon. I mean, it is so hard to translate those things into actual production and make it sustainable. I'm not going to say the company, but I heard of one just yesterday where it came up and people were all about it. This is going to be great. This is the new big thing. Well, they actually started producing batteries, and now they're falling behind because of all the repairs they're having to go out and make. And it was not ready for production, and it just wasn't delivering the specs that they had expected, the customers had expected. And it's now they're like, well, what do we do? Like the product we said we were going to put out, we can't actually put out. We tried, but we can't do it. So it's a take it with a grain of salt always. It's going to be tough to dismount lithium for sure.
Well, like I've told you, in the private equity space, people are looking for folks that can execute and that are worthwhile to put the money behind. Okay. And I look at so much of the EV space, and I look at FUV, which is it's one of those three-wheel bikes. Archimoto is the name of the company. They basically went defunct about a year ago. Their stock's still worth about 20 cents, but it got delisted from the NASDAQ. It's now on the OTC. And, it was an interesting idea, but they were manufacturing, or at least assembling, their three-wheel bikes, motorcycles, actually. They went about 75 miles per hour in the Pacific Northwest. Okay. And the problem is, while I think these are probably a great device for, say, like California, or, you have cities where people ride around on their golf carts, right?
Yep.
It's good for that. It'd be great for Europe. It'd be great for India. It'd be great for places where people traditionally travel on two wheels or three wheels rather than four. And I think it was a market mismatch. I think it's an amazing looking vehicle. I think it'd be great and cool to have one, but it's not fully enclosed. So, like, if you had one here in Nebraska, it'd be practical about 6 months a year.
Yeah, if that.
And so there's definitely some issues. I look also at Canoe, exciting vehicles. They've got some with the state of Oklahoma. They've got some they've put out, like the Postal Service, to maybe do something. They've done something with NASA, but they're not producing.
Yeah,
they're not in production. So they've got these great prototypes, and this is one of the reasons why, regardless of how you feel about Elon Musk, people keep putting money behind him because he's executing. He's got ideas that somehow he's always able to make them work. Tesla shouldn't have survived. I've looked at this a couple times. I'm like, okay, if Tesla had been started 5 years sooner or 5 years later, would it have made it? I'm not so sure it would have. I look at it, if so the Model S was released in 2012, but if it had been released 5 years earlier in 2007 at the start of that recession, I'm not sure. I don't think it would have worked. Okay, if instead of releasing it in 2012, you'd released it in 2017, and then the Model 3 came out 6 years later in 2023 with interest rates the way they are, I don't think it would have made it. And the thing is, the rest of the EV world has revolved around Tesla.
Yeah.
Tesla's a leader, and everybody's kind of revolving around Tesla, and they're all trying to catch up. And like I said, regardless of how you feel about Musk, his personality and vision or whatever, even though he didn't initially found Tesla, he certainly has driven everything. And then you look at his success with SpaceX. This is why when Tesla is making batteries, or if Tesla says they have a battery breakthrough, I have a lot of faith in that, because eventually that's going to come to market. And it's just like the thing with Tesla self-driving cars. People keep complaining that it's not out yet or whatever. It was supposed to have been out in August or something like that, and it's looking like next year. It's like, well,
it's still going to come out.
It's still going to come out. He may be late.
Yep.
Waymo, maybe, which is a Google company, maybe
Yep.
putting out a lot of, cars by then or whatever. But I don't think they're going to lose out.
Mm.
And I think it's definitely the IBM of the EV space. There used to be that expression, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. If you're
Yeah.
out ordering IT stuff and you would decide to go with IBM,
It'd
you
be fine.
knew it might be expensive, but it was going to work out, and I think that's the case with Tesla. And
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think I always look at him. He's hype man. What a fantastic hype man for the brand,
mhm.
and backing it up with actually delivering. That helps. That helps your case. Yeah, no, I think they've driven it. What Tesla's doing with batteries right now, regardless of how the vehicle lives on, um, they're killing it in home based batteries and commercial based battery and even utility grade battery operations. I mean, they are really doing good things in that space, which is an undercurrent of the Tesla brand right now. Of they're leading batteries, I believe, right now in what they're doing. But it's yeah, everybody else in here is just so hard to get behind some of these when everything's said and done, of looking at it like this is amazing, dude, that's glossy and we've discharged it 500,000 times and it hasn't lost anything. Well, did you stick it out in a fence in Ohio, where it's going to be 100 degrees and it's going to be negative 20 degrees and kids are going to throw rocks at it? Did you figure that out?
Right. Well, and now, we're waiting today, and we won't broadcast all the way till the FOMC announcement, unfortunately, because I know a lot of people are watching, I know, because of that. But that 0.5%, if we do see a 0.5% interest rate, that may see some more development in the green energy space, because we know how much wind production and solar production is driven by interest rates. That may start getting some more money moving towards the green investment space. But back on our topic of these sodium ion, aqueous zinc ion batteries. It's supposed to be a low cost option derived from abundant resources. Now, a scientist at a university called Flinders. I've never heard of this. I'm sure it must be overseas.
Overseas somewhere, yeah.
Anyways, are pioneering efforts to develop practical polymer-based aqueous zinc ion batteries using organic cathodes, marking a significant step towards sustainable energy storage. Lots of buzzwords there.
I
Lots
was
of
going to say
buzzwords.
how many different elements can you
Yeah,
throw into that,
yeah,
and what's going to do?
yeah. And if you're new to our show, we while we try to promote EVs and green energy, we take it with a grain of salt. Okay, we are very skeptical of a lot of the technologies that people are pushing in the space. There's a few proven technologies that seem to work, and we're always open and we're cheering for some of these others to work. But we realize that on a lot of these cases, they'll just never make it to market. Nobody will jump behind it. It's like hydrogen. We put out news about hydrogen, but we've always put it with a caveat, in that we think things look grim for the hydrogen space.
It is, and I agree. I cautiously optimistic about it, because yeah, I hope these things do work. I hope there is a breakthrough, and you can develop this out of stuff you find in your backyard, and build a battery out of it. But this was years and
Well,
years ago, when I was closer to being out of school, and one of these things came through, and I emailed an old physics professor, and boy, was he excited about it, and just in a negative way. Like, I've done that experiment, 100,000 times in my life, and I have never gotten that result. Every single physics professor in the world has done this experiment, and we have never gotten this result. So this company claiming that they devised a way to figure this out and they finally had a breakthrough, like, more power to them. But there's a lot of history of very, very smart people who have said, like, yeah, this doesn't work that way. Physics doesn't really work that way.
right. No, I get it. It's like all of a sudden it's magic, right?
Yeah, kind of.
I'm going to go ahead and move on. So I want to discuss, and this is something I didn't realize. So as time goes on, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that the incentives for EVs are based on the fact that what percentage of the batteries components don't come from China. Okay, so a big part of this is we need EV battery production in the United States, and so this is going to be kind of interesting. So we're going to talk about the 10 major lithium-ion battery manufacturers in 2024 that are already producing batteries in the United States, and the United States is currently the third largest producer of lithium-ion batteries in the world. Now, I know you can guess what number one is. Number two isn't what I would have suspected. I would have suspected it would have been South Korea. What would you think would be number two?
Is it somewhere in that region?
No,
Southeast Asia? It's not.
no. It's a country that's proud of the fact they don't take in immigrants.
I have no idea.
Poland.
Poland.
Yeah.
Poland's the number two.
I did not expect that. They're number two.
Yeah. I was going to go somewhere like, Brazil or something like that, where maybe they've got a whole bunch of resources, but Poland.
Yeah, Poland of all places. So anyways, but the People's Republic of China manufactures 77% of the batteries in the world. Poland makes 6%.
At number two.
Yes, number two is 6% versus 77. Yeah, China is definitely the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Okay. And the United States makes almost 6%. Poland makes slightly more than 6%. So I'm sure we'll pass up Poland soon. Mm-hmm. But Poland's only marginally ahead of the United States. Doesn't say where South Korea falls, but I'd be willing to bet money South Korea is number 4. Taiwan's probably number 5 or something like that. But I don't know that. I know people that have battery recycling facilities in Vietnam. And, I'm aware of other things that are out there, but not much in the way of battery manufacturing. So in 23, that 6%, less than 6%, represented $13.7 billion in battery sales. That's a pretty big number. Now, the thing is, and this is kind of an interesting thing to see. So the price that lithium-ion batteries sell at goes down by 20 to 25% every single year.
It's insane.
Okay, so to achieve the same number, you have to sell about 25% more batteries the following year. By 2032, the U.S. This is the U.S. battery market size expected to go from 13.7 billion to 71.6 billion. So a 5.5-fold increase. An annual growth rate of about 20%. Now, that's in dollars. Okay, so once again, you not only have that the dollars are going up, but at the same time, the amount of battery per dollar is going down.
Yep.
So, or your dollar is stretching farther anyways. But number one is Tesla, which I knew that Tesla made batteries. I know they make batteries in Nevada. And let's see if we have it. It's acquired many battery manufacturing companies, Maxwell Technologies, High Bar Systems, and Spring Power International. They make nickel, cobalt, aluminum cathodes and lithium iron phosphate cathodes. And it's lithium-ion batteries are known world over for their high quality and durability. It also has a gigafactory. There's gigafactories in Austin, New York, Nevada, Fremont, Shanghai, and Berlin. And there's another one being built in Mexico. Now, that doesn't mean that that's where they all make batteries. I know that the facility it says Nevada, but that one's in Sparks, Nevada, which is right beside Reno.
Oh,
and that's where they make batteries. Number 2 is Panasonic. Panasonic was founded in 1918. That's an old company, isn't it? It was originally called Matsushita Electric Housewares Manufacturing Works.
Let me ask you this: does the article say is this just lithium ion for vehicles, or is it all lithium ion?
It could be a wide range of lithium ion batteries.
So that's like I could see a Panasonic. I mean, just power tools, cell
Right.
phones, different things like that. There's a lot of batteries out there.
Well, when you think about the space, people think about EVs because that's what you and I are on here mainly to discuss. But yeah, it encompasses everything: tools, cell phones.
Mhm.
There's a lot
Like
of
day to day,
children's
every
toys.
little rechargeable device you have. I mean,
Right.
there's advances lithium ion in there and what they're using.
Yeah. So number three is a company called Microvast Holdings out of Texas. And not familiar with this one, but it's
I
got
wonder.
manufacturing in the US, China, and Germany. Its lithium ion batteries are used in EVs and utility scale energy storage systems.
Okay, so they're making big ones. I wonder if
Yeah,
they have.
so they're making big batteries.
Yeah.
So they're not making pocket sized batteries. They're not making batteries that are going to make your pager explode.
Yeah. Oof. That's
I,
a
I was looking at a news article um, about that, and somebody was like, "Well, I'm sure not going to buy an EV now." Like, if they could make 5,000 pagers explode at the same time. Um, Apparently, the story is the pagers all got hot before they exploded.
okay.
They all heated up. So I don't know. What could that have been a thermal? What is that expression they call it when thermal overrun or
Yeah,
whatever?
thermal runaway.
Thermal runaway. Yeah, it makes me kind of wonder.
I
Um,
haven't read anything about it yet. I kind of want to see because that's wow. Yeah, that's a good
yeah,
one.
yeah. So if you don't know the story, Hamas or not Hamas, Hezbollah
Mhm.
decided that the Israelis could track their cell phones, and they told all of their like 20,000 soldiers or whatever in Lebanon to get rid of their cell phones, and they issued pagers instead. And apparently, they didn't choose the right supplier or something. And at the same time, yesterday, all over Lebanon, including the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon, all had their pagers explode. So, but these were all ones that had been bought by Hezbollah. So it was
Mhm.
all
It
people
was
that are,
all
part of
very
what's considered
very
to be a
controlled.
terrorist organization. And thousands were injured. Um, and they're estimating about 5,000 people were either injured or killed by the
Yeah.
pagers. And of course, somebody's child got injured or killed by it. And so I saw where that was newsworthy, but you wouldn't expect anybody would have been letting their kid play with their pager, right? But
I have kids. I could absolutely see that. I
no,
mean,
but
a pager's not that interesting compared to a cell phone, but
no, it's
there you
not.
go. Just push the
There's no
button.
games play on the pager. But anyways, yeah, they all went off simultaneously, and of course, everybody just assumes that Israel did it.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it seems like the most likely
Yeah.
scenario,
I mean,
but you're also
them
like,
or us. Right? That's
if you're talking about, espionage and people doing something to go in and install explosives and 5,000 pagers, that's
I know,
pretty
but it's
damn
just
impressive.
your point. The follow up is you wonder if everybody. Well, what about ourselves? What about my iPhone? What about my Android? What about my
Right.
car?
Well, and I saw the same thing. Well, what about phones? What if your phones started blowing up? It's like, well, I don't think it was a matter of, you know, they had to have had an explosive device in them. It's not like they could have
Right.
made.
I think so. I think it's not like somebody found a glitch in Apple software and said, "Okay, I can make this battery explode." No, that had to have been they got in the supply chain somewhere. So,
What was it? It was about
they're
5 years
ordering
ago when there was a Samsung phone that had some recall because a whole bunch of them were catching on fire. The
yeah.
phone was overheating and catching on fire. Um, but anyways, back to our list of these battery companies. Now these are all in the United States. Number four was Wanjiang A123 Systems. Obviously, this is a Chinese company, but
Manufacturing.
founded in 20. Oh, it started out in 2001. Started doing batteries in 2013, and it's in the U.S., Germany, Czech Republic, and the People's Republic of China. And wow, they have a lot of patents, 715 patents for batteries, of which 546 are original to them. Let's see. It supplies lithium-ion batteries to Volkswagen, Renault, GM, BMW, Audi, Daimler-Benz, Volvo, Porsche, Jaguar, Land Rover, and also Vertiv and Sonnen. They also make energy storage for both industrial and household. Yeah, not somebody I was familiar with. Enersys, Enersys. I've heard of them before.
That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar to me too. But it's also kind of a generic tech company name.
Right. Yeah. Right. It is. They supply batteries to customers in more than 100 countries. Let's see. It's based out of Reading, Pennsylvania. It has offices in Switzerland and Singapore, so that's definitely a U.S. company. Manufactures the Nexus, NEXSYS ion series of lithium-ion batteries. They're produced using
familiar too. That Nexus sounds familiar.
Nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistry. They're ideal for heavy-duty operations. They charge at a fast pace, are durable, have low upkeep. Does not specify that it's used in cars. It tends to be used in grids, telecommunications, medical safety, and climate change. But they also a major producer of lithium-ion batteries for energy storage solutions. Sounds like the company wrote a press release there and they copied that one.
Broad category.
Yeah, no, I know. And it's a challenge to come up with information on the number 6 was Arcadium Lithium. Hadn't heard of them either, but it was a merger in 2000. It was formed in January of this year. It was a merger of Allchem Limited and Livent, Livent, which I hadn't heard of either of those. And the merged company has a global footprint, end-to-end services for the manufacturing of lithium-ion batteries. Let's see. It's a miner and processor of lithium. Now, it's U.S. based, but it really doesn't give any specifics. They don't tell where it's from or anyways. So we're here in Omaha, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our next one is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, and that's Duracell. So it's since 2016, Duracell has been wholly owned by Berkshire Hathaway.
I don't know that.
So good for Warren, right? Mm-hmm. Warren also owns 8% of BYD. So, it's significant. It's really kind of weird because you don't think of him when you think of EVs, right?
Not at all.
But here in this space, we know a little more, right? But this Duracell, of course, makes little batteries. That's well known. And let's see, they're making ones for sensors, smoke detectors, photo flash, keyless locks, flashlights, dog collars, and bike accessories. So they're not in the EV space.
No,
per se.
It's interesting. It's what we talked about before. When you think lithium ion, you think cars, but no, they're everywhere.
Right. Yeah, it's all over the place. And then number 8 is LG. Now they're a Korean-based company, but they have a division in the United States, and they end up being the 8th biggest lithium-ion maker in the U.S. And they do make batteries for EVs. They do make batteries for e-bikes. I know they're we had an electric motorcycle manufacturer, Mayving, and they were talking about they use only LG batteries. So they wanted to not use Chinese batteries, and they wanted a very high quality battery. So they got LG. Interesting enough, when I spoke about electric motorcycles, Bill and I on Tuesday have Marco Soriano from Soriano Motoria. They're over 100-year-old Italian motorcycle and race car manufacturer. Okay. Awesome. And currently they only make EVs. So they're only making electric motorcycles, and they're very elegant. They're expensive. This guy is making them. It's a bike that's catering to people that have high-end sports cars in their garage as well. So it's not catering to your regular motorcycle enthusiast.
Not your commuter bike.
What's interesting is it has a transmission. It has gears. It actually shifts gears on the bike too.
Really?
Yeah, so it'll be
Uh,
interesting discussion, but he's coming on with Bill and I next week.
that was one of the advantages of having an electric motor. You don't
Yeah,
really
but
need
see,
that.
his thing is a motorcycle enthusiast likes that part of the motorcycle.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I see that. That's one of the things, one of the complaints that you hear about EVs is I want the noise. I want to shift gears. You know, it doesn't seem, if somebody is racing cars, they want to be able to shift gears,
Visceral,
and
tangible. Yeah.
the one pedal driving doesn't, satisfy those urges, right? It doesn't feel like it's challenging. It's too simple.
I like it.
Um,
I like to push the pedal and it just goes. But
yeah, no, I know, not
I'm
too much
also not a
thinking, right?
racing enthusiast, so I can definitely see the other side of that.
Number 9 is Samsung,
Eh,
and
I
Samsung
thought they
makes all
might be
kinds of
higher.
elect.
That Samsung might be higher.
Yeah, they're putting they're making batteries for EVs, energy storage, micromobility, power devices, and IT devices. And the last one on our list, number 10, is East Penn, as in Pennsylvania, manufacturing company, which started in 1946 when a guy named Delight Bride Jam Jr., an Air Force veteran, his father, started a business to make batteries. The business was located at Bowers, Pennsylvania. It makes the DECA-ready power lithium-ion battery, high-intensity performance, almost maintenance-free. I suspect those are used heavily in tools, most likely. But I thought that was kind of interesting to see because you really don't think of that. I hear all the time of new lithium-ion battery manufacturing plants and sodium-ion manufacturing
Mhm.
plants are coming online in the United States. There's some of them going on in Indian reservations, like in Oklahoma and some other places. And then you've got obviously that big $14 billion investment by Toyota out in the Carolinas.
Yeah,
And so you've got major plant going on there. Hyundai, who we mentioned, is going to make batteries. I think they're going to make them in Georgia. So that plant isn't online yet either. But now we've been talking about lithium battery supply chains. My next article is kind of a negative piece on the EV industry. Forced and child labor abuses found in 75% of lithium battery supply chains. AI-driven data research finds Chinese mining companies among the worst offenders of human rights, risking automotive battery supplies for battery electric vehicles. Now, to a degree, not much of this surprises me. Okay.
I'm
We
not.
hear complaints all the time about how certain religious sects are persecuted and, doing forced labor in China. And some of this, we've seen talk about where cattle is guilty of this, and cattle's probably the biggest battery manufacturer in the world. And so there's some challenges with that. But up to 3/4 of the planet's lithium-ion battery supplies are at risk of being banned in the U.S. and other Western nations because of forced and child labor abuses. Now, we were just mentioning China makes 77% of EV batteries. The United States is actively incentivizing people to buy electric vehicles that don't have those Chinese batteries in it.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you look, some of this is already baked into some of the things the United States government is trying to promote. They're trying to get people to stop using those. Tesla makes a lot of their own batteries in the United States. They make some overseas. They don't buy them from cattle, though.
Mhm.
They're making them in their own facilities.
Yeah, I'll always go back to don't sleep on Tesla with batteries and their production. I think that's going to be a good thing. I agree with you. I don't think that article's surprised. I think that number's big, especially
75%.
yeah. I think that's surprising. But the idea that that's happening, I know that was one of the rationales going into it of not buying from that market. Of hey, they're able to keep costs so low because of this. I mean, you can do the simple math. But yeah, if you're not paying people for labor in that space, you can keep costs low. Um,
Well,
so I
I've had this argument about a lot of things. So people will say something in the news and people will say that's not true. But when you have hundreds of millions of people and you don't know what all those hundreds of millions of people are doing, we're all different. And those things probably are occurring but it might only be 1 or 2 people did it a year. It's like our stupid thing last week with the thing about don't put the charger plug in your mouth or rectum.
Mm-hmm.
We figure it had to have happened at least twice.
At least twice.
At least twice for there to be warning labels
People
out
being
now
an idiot.
on the charging stations. Okay. As funny as it sounds, it's not a joke. They're actually putting those labels on charging stations now because it's kind of like, warning coffee is hot. It doesn't make it doesn't make sense, but obviously it happened, and it shouldn't happen. And a lot of humans are just morons and they can't help it. Okay. And so anyways, but this whole thing with, yeah, of course, somewhere there's forced labor somewhere, but the thing is, how much of that is really going on? Okay. Now it may be bad in China, but it's like the whole thing when we talk about cobalt in the Congo, yeah, there's probably some little kids out there doing child labor in the Congo getting that, but is it 1 or 2? Is it 10,000? You'd think in the news, you'd think it was like 10,000 children. Like the kids aren't going to school. They're all going to the mine, and that's what they're learning to do. And, I'm suspecting it's probably happened, but it's probably not a whole lot. There was even cases of child labor being used for some different stuff down in Alabama where some company got in trouble. And it was like three individuals or something like that it occurred with. It's like, it shouldn't have happened. Somehow it did. But how did it happen? You know what I mean? It's like, were they really forcing these kids? Did these kids like beg and plead? I don't have any food at home. I need a job. You don't really know what the situation is, and somebody stuck their neck on the line, and they got the company in a lot of trouble when it got found out that there was somebody who wasn't old enough to be working there.
I can get behind that position of not jumping to conclusions on what it is. I mean, taking a step back, yeah, it shouldn't happen. It's bad. We all agree that's a bad thing. We don't want that to happen and what it looks like, but it's the prevalence and how those things fit in, I think would be good. It's just that 75%, that's a big number of somewhere down in the supply chain. Those things are happening.
Well, you could say that 75% of the supply chain is tainted.
Yeah.
Okay. But is it really that 75% of that's being done by that labor? That's trying to make it sound like that's the only thing being used. Let's assume that number really is probably more like 1%. Now, so here, Europe is following suit with a forced labor ban, while a proposal has been submitted to increase the fines for non-compliance with UK's Modern Slavery Act to 4% of global annual turnover. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. Is it acceptable that 4% of the supplies were from slaves? I mean, it really, we don't, we like to think there's no slaves, right? But, and I'm not trying to make anything saying it's okay for there to be slavery. I'm not saying that, but it's,
I mean, are you interpreting that statement like me? Like they allow 4%? I mean, yeah,
I'm not real sure.
I don't know.
So so this article went on and even talks about research found human rights abuses ranging from people being forced to work in lithium refining facilities under the threat of no or minimal pay to 5-year-old children mining cobalt materials in hazardous conditions. Now, 5-year-old is just hard to fathom.
Yeah.
I mean, how useful could a 5-year-old actually be in that situation? These severe human rights incidents are occurring globally, especially in resource-like countries with fragile and corrupt governments, like the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Madagascar. I think I told you I saw some video where somebody that I enjoy was having an argument with somebody about where cobalt comes from. And I'm pretty sure that neither the person that was talking or the student he was arguing with, I don't think either of them actually knew where cobalt comes from. Everybody thinks it comes from China, but it comes from the Congo. Now, is that a step up from China? No, it's not. It's not in the slightest. It's a step in the wrong direction. China's probably a better actor on the global stage than Congo, and Madagascar is not any better either. But I'm just saying that it's a different I don't know. It's a different look, but how bad is it? So here's something. Let me see what this company is. So, um, in regards to Chinese mining, most of the allegations of abuse involve companies who are mining and refining raw materials in China that end up in batteries around the world, particularly ones coming from the Xinjiang Uyghur
Yeah,
autonomous region. Now, the
and
Uyghurs are the ones that are being
there's
politically persecuted.
a religiously oppressed group there
Yeah,
specifically.
and I believe they're Muslim Chinese. I believe is
Mhm.
what it is. Okay. Anyways, battery, automotive, and solar industry has been hit with public allegations of widespread forced labor from journalists, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations. Battery electric vehicle and battery manufacturers work with complex supply chains, sometimes with more than 10,000 suppliers across their network, from mines to chemical refineries and automotive manufacturers. It finds human rights abuses frequently occur upstream in the supply chain, notably at raw material mining and refining stages. Now, the thing is, this isn't something that's unique to the EV space.
Oh,
Okay. These same minerals are being used in your cell phones.
I would say, and it's not just that. If you've done anything with like Build America, Buy America, and requirements of raw materials being sourced from the United States, oh, it's a bear of tracing everything down. And so something like steel, right? Okay, I can figure out where steel came from, where that was mined, where it was manufactured, but you get complex electronic devices, and the expectation is you're going to know where all of those chips came from. And if any one of those chips or any one of those components are from the naughty list, or more of them are overseas than the US, and this all of a sudden this entire component goes through, and it's just you you can't trace these things down. You can't go back and find them and really get an idea. And I like the idea of it. I like the idea of the act and what it looks like, but there are so many things that are single source items or small source items where you just you can't get rid of the chips out of this electronic equipment overnight. Like you have to source it from overseas. There's no other way around it.
Well, yeah, because there's no ERS. You can't cost effectively mine a lot of that stuff in the United States.
No.
You know, the EPA won't approve it or whatever.
Or just not
And
here. I mean, some of it.
yeah, I mean, the resources are probably in the United States at some point, but it's just you'd never get a permit to
It's
be able
very,
to
yeah.
extract it.
When you start talking about complex electronics, complex machines with lots of components, it's just, yes, it's a big, big, big supply network when you start tracing everything upstream.
Yeah, and I guarantee you these same issues exist in the oil industry.
Oh,
Okay, it's just that we're in the EV space, and we tend to be critical. We both try to encourage and be critical of the industry at the same time. But most of your companies, your Teslas in particular, they try really hard to make sure that their products are certified as not using any of that illicit labor.
mhm.
Okay. But could there still be some? Yeah.
Somewhere up and down.
It's probable that something got in, because people might be able to get it from one mine a little cheaper. And so maybe they're sliding it in through the back door, um, to be able to make a little bit extra money. It's probably happening. And like I've said before, it's like, well, a 5-year-old kid is ridiculous. Okay, that's absolutely absurd that somebody would be five trying to do any kind of labor, and actually be more help than just getting in the way. You know what I mean? But,
Yeah.
um, when you start talking about 12 to 14 years old, you start talking a whole nother matter. And like I said before, it's like, well, you let them starve to death, or you let them work. If they're slaves, that's a different ballgame. Okay. But, we're talking if they're voluntarily working and things like that. You get into different, what's right, what's wrong, who's to determine where that goes. But anyways, and once again, we started out the show talking a little bit about the FOMC meeting. It's supposed to happen in about 20 minutes, but Mike and I do not go on that long. And
I'm not making it another 20 minutes.
no, and so I know a lot of folks are kind of wondering, our thoughts there. I would not be surprised at all to see it be. If I were Jerome Powell, I would only do 0.25% and just see how it plays out. Because you can always drop it another 0.25% in 3 months. You can always come back and decide, hey, that wasn't enough. I mean, to me, in a conservative viewpoint, that would be the way to roll with it. Okay. But there's a lot of people thinking it's going to be a 0.5 point, and that 0.25% is already baked into stock market prices right now. So don't go getting too crazy if that's what it is. If it ends up being a 0.5%, the stock market's going to take a huge run up. And we'll see where that goes. Anyways, that was all I wanted to cover for today, unless you had anything else, Mike. I assume you're good.
That was pretty good. Covered a lot of good battery stuff today. I liked it.
Yeah, folks, we really appreciate all the folks that tuned in today. I see we've got a lot of new people watching, and Mike's with me every Wednesday. I do my show with Bill on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Anyways, until next week, Mike, you have a good week, and folks, thank you so much